ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was? Then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. We welcome you to today's show and ask those of you who have not subscribed to please subscribe to our YouTube channel as we continue to expose the satanic Illuminati agenda and the ushering in of the Antichrist. This is somewhat breaking news here. According to various sources, HAARP will be reopening in 2017. HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which they tell us is used to analyze the ionosphere and the upper atmosphere while investigating the potential for developing ionospheric enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. That's what they tell us HAARP is. HAARP was shut down a few years ago because everybody was catching on to the capabilities of what HAARP was doing. People in Alaska, where HAARP is located, where they will be turning this back on, were reporting all sorts of issues, all sorts of strange things were happening, including them using HAARP and the radio waves that they use with it to control people's minds, sending waves and frequencies to people's brains. They were picking up things in their head. All sorts of bizarre stuff was going on. So they had to shut HAARP down because too many people were catching on that this was not something that was used to study the ionosphere. But in reality, they were using HAARP for biological warfare. They were using it to actually manipulate weather patterns and things like that. They were using it for biological silent warfare that they continue to wage on the citizens of the world. Now, this is according to the National Association for Amateur Radio, but it's also been picked up by various other outlets now. They're saying that HAARP will reopen in 2017. The sprawling facility now is under the ownership of the University of Alaska Fairbanks, UAF, and the UAF Geophysical Institute is preparing HAARP for a new sponsored research campaign that's set to begin early next year. This involves, for example, reinstalling the vacuum tubes in each of the 10 kW amplifiers, eventually 360 in total, that were removed by the U.S. Air Force, the facility's former owner, because it was formerly owned by the Air Force. Now we're supposed to believe that this university owns it, and our government's not going to be involved with anything with it. It's just going to be used by a university for studying. Yeah, I'm sure. Of course they're going to say that, and they're going to cover up what they do, because that's all that they do is cover everything up. He later clarifies just one half of the 720 tubes required to equip all of HAARP's transmitters. For the first campaign, we'll only be bringing half of the array online, as we will only have half the tubes installed, he explained. It's a long process, and we have limited resources. He noted that the transmitter shelters we have unheated since the previous campaign in the summer of 2014. The 5 generators have recently been tested individually and are verified operational. The guy goes on to say that HAARP will indeed be brought back online. Some instruments on site need to be repaired or replaced. And of course, it's so obvious with stuff like this. Like I said, they're going to have it under the cover of this university. Oh, and they're going to need funding for it. So I'm sure they'll get funding to go through with this, but they'll pretend like the government's not funding it, that the CIA isn't involved in it, and the military is not involved with it. They'll just pretend and continue to pretend that it's the university, but money will just keep coming in so that they can repair this and get it back up and running. Because obviously when this was shut down a few years ago, everybody assumed it was never going to be an issue again. A lot of people did think that they probably never really shut it off in the first place. And how can you argue that? How can you believe anything that they tell you? But obviously the citizens of Alaska weren't hearing the same sounds emanating from this base. They weren't seeing the same things that they had been seeing, but it doesn't mean they weren't testing it. We know that they currently have CERN up and running, and CERN's been linked to some of these earthquake events that have gone on. People have suggested that the testing that they're doing over at CERN, with the amount of energy that they're able to generate and bring together at this, and smash these particles together, have indeed caused some of these earthquakes and things that have occurred. But HAARP going back up is a very, very dangerous thing. This is not something to take lightly. But I find it funny that this story on HAARP is linked to all these different communication websites and radio websites that are talking about it as if this is going to do something for radio involvement. You know, this guy says for other researchers are planning to install instruments at the science pads. We're still investigating models for increasing amateur radio involvement with HAARP. And the University of Alaska goes on. The UAF describes HAARP as the world's most capable, high-power, high-frequency transmitter for study of the ionosphere, built in 3 phases starting in the early 90s and continuing through 2007 at a cost of some $300 million. $300 million for this biological attack on us. Our tax money funds these things. Our tax money funds them creating these devices that they can use for biological warfare on us. It's absolutely ridiculous. The article goes on to say HAARP over the years has inspired a wide range of conspiracy theories that become grist for late-night radio talk shows. Some have claimed that HAARP's transmitters and 30-acre antenna farm have been used to control the weather, while others have argued that HAARP has caused earthquakes. So, of course, in the article, they have to mention conspiracy theories. They have to mention that. Well, obviously, you know, too many people caught on to what was going on with HAARP. There was too many documentaries coming out. Too many people in Alaska were having problems speaking out against it, speaking out. You know, they were recording the sounds that were coming out of the base in the middle of the night, and weird weather patterns that were forming, weird clouds and things that were forming over this base because they were seeing things shooting up from these antennas into the sky. I mean, unbelievable stuff. People were calling them out on it, and they actually shut it down because too many people were catching on and starting to say, all right, what is this? What are you really doing here? But now it's gone away because they've claimed it's been shut down. And, you know, we don't know for sure if it has been or hasn't. Obviously, I would doubt that they would actually follow through on something like that. But maybe they did it, you know, started testing in different places. But now it's quietly vanished. People aren't talking about it anymore. Everybody's kind of moved on to things like CERN, talked about those things. And it's quietly going to reopen in 2017. And like I said, of course, they have to mention conspiracy theory in the article. Like I've talked about in my other videos, they have to always say conspiracy theory so that when somebody comes across this, they just start rolling their eyes. Oh, conspiracy theory, controlling the weather. How would that be possible? But of course, they claim, you know, that HAARP, which is aimed at studying the properties and behavior of the ionosphere, that the operation of the research facility was transferred from the U.S. Air Force to the University of Alaska Fairbanks last August, allowing HAARP to continue exploring ionospheric phenomena via a land use cooperative research and development agreement. So, like I said, they claimed to shut it down. It wasn't fully shut down. They were still testing with it, but the actual base was not operating the way that it used to. They were moving things around and doing smaller testing in different locations. But now they're reopening HAARP. They're reopening this base. More of this biological warfare is going to continue to go on. And make no mistake about it, HAARP was created as a weapon. That was the reason that they created a biological weapon. Okay, and instead of using it for, you know, they'll tell people that they have it there for military reasons in the event that Russia does something or another country does something that, oh, this is just some top secret thing that's here to protect us and it could save us from some event occurring. That's, you know, that's the stuff that they preach. But in reality, it's there for war on us because it's silent war. It's something that we can't control. Sending, you know, have the amount of power that HAARP has is unimaginable, and the types of radio waves that they can send out there and the frequencies that they can send into the atmosphere is absolutely frightening, the capabilities that they have with this machine. Now, I'm not saying that something's happening and they're going to do something with it in 2017. I'm just telling you it is reopening. For those of you that weren't aware, it is now officially reopening in 2017, according to various sources, including the National Association for Amateur Radio and others who have picked up on it. So it's good to just be aware of these things. Know what your government's doing. Know what, you know, the types of weapons that they have, the types of biological weapons that they have, the types of things. We already know about chemtrails. We already know about a lot of different stuff that they do to attack us, to attack our flesh, right? By dumping chemicals on us, by putting chemicals in the food and constantly making us sick. Okay, now we're talking about it on a different scale with, you know, controlling weather patterns and sending out high frequency radio waves that can potentially be used as a form of mind control. So HAARP 2017 is reopening. Get the word out there so people know. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. They shut it down, and you assumed it would be for good. And like I said, obviously, when they tell you something like that, that doesn't mean much of anything. Obviously, they're still testing with it. They just wanted to get people off their backs. Because when people do speak out, sometimes they have to take action, because it was getting very obvious up there with HAARP. A lot of things were going on. A lot of weird things were being reported. And with the internet and with YouTube and all these different, you know, channels out there that there are for people to report stuff, They pretty much had no choice but to shut it down. They made an excuse as to why they did it, but they realized that people were catching on that something really strange was going on here, and it wasn't being used for what they said it was being used for. But now, like I said, it's faded out, it's gone away, and they're just going to quietly reopen it under the cover of being a part of a university study, that the University of Alaska is going to use it for research and study, and somehow they're going to get all of this funding behind it. Of course they are, because the government's going to fund it. So 2017, it's reopening. Spread the word. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you, and may peace be with you.